This is an exciting game I like to showcase, the final tie-break game for the World Blitz Championship. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave on the left played against Polish Grandmaster Jan-Krystof Duda on the top right. And this is an image from the game, and they were playing the tie-break because they tied for first. Actually, there were three players, Alireza Firouzja, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and Jan-Krystof Duda finishing tied for first, but only the best two tie-break scores went to play the final match. So here, e4 is played in game 3 on that tie-break. Maxime is white, Jan-Krystof is black. So they go for a Ruy Lopez. And here first choice g3, avoiding the main line with c3 and d4. So this is very classical. a3, very important. The bishop can retreat here if he gets chased by the knight. White wants to keep the bishop pair. Knight b8 played. This is kind of important because the knight goes back to d7. This is very typical. And they maneuver the pieces first. Now, critical moment. How do you recapture? You could recapture with bc3 and d4, right? But instead, Vachier-Lagrave went for bishop c3 because he's thinking there's a target here, another target. You can bring the rook here and potentially play d4. So he's playing against the structure. Well, if you play bc3, then that pawn is hard to attack, and potentially black would play c6. So it's a different kind of game. So now they repeated the first game they played. And here in this position, very important, you cannot play rook b8 because then you would take on a5. And even if black takes here, you can potentially bring back the bishop and try to advance your pawn here. So instead here, Duda played rook a7 to control a5. Now queen c2, that's a surprise. In the first game, they went for exchanges like that. That was the first game, but here in the third game, because they had two draws, queen c2 played. And white still wants to play d4, but is preparing it with queen c2, and now the rook are connected, which is very important. And here the first mistake. The right move here was knight e6, because then you can do knight d4, bishop d7, and c6. Instead, Duda thought they could do bishop g4, attacking the knight, and then let's say if you move the knight, come here and have chances. But that active move, bishop g4, is a mistake. d4 played, and here Duda took on d4. Initially, maybe he thought he could take here, but that's not good. You take on c5, the bishop retreat, you play c6, and here you play rook a3, and you have a very dominating position for white. Let me explain. Here you do rook b3, and if you try to create a luft, rook b5, attacking a5, and if you defend like that, then you do f4, and you're attacking both on the f5, and with queen d2, you may even win the a5 pawn. That's a crushing position where white is winning. So seeing that, Duda took on d4 and now has to retreat the bishop. Knight b5, and again that rook doesn't have a lot of squares. Maybe rook a6 was possible, but here you simply wait b3 and you have a much better position because white is very secured, and you would have maybe rook b6, but here white is better thanks to the bishop on d5. That is very important to have in mind, and a5 will drop. So instead here, desperate measures, Duda takes, exchange the pieces, and play a4 in order to secure the knight on c5. But this game is about dominating pieces, and the bishop on d5, because of his pawn, cannot be chased, while the knight on c5 eventually can be chased through playing b4. So here white has a space advantage and an incredible bishop on d5. In a blitz game, it's much easier to play with white. Now the game continues, bishop c6, securing b5. Again, that bishop cannot be easily chased and is much stronger than the knight on c5. The game continued and it will illustrate e5 opening the lines, and look at how the b5 pawn blocks the activity from black on the b5, right? Now, there was an exchange. White took a pawn, a3. So now white has an extra pawn. But this is a pass pawn, again supported by the bishop on c6. And after white take care of the back rank, it is a dominating position. The bishop is stronger than the knight, and the pass pawn will make a difference. Let's see how things happen. Another mistake here, it was probably best to do knight c5 to try to play against the rook, but rook c3 played, and Duda was not on time. Rook a1, bishop d5. Once again, the bishop d5 dominates the knight on d8. It's pretty clear that you're attacking f7, and you have absolutely, with rook a7, control of everything there. Keep in mind you cannot take on b5 because rook d8 will lose the knight. So here, king f8 played, rook a7, dream position for white. You're completely coordinated, you're tied here, and you cannot even leave the 8th rank because your knight has to be protected. So bishop d3, rook d3 played, sorry, and here white has all the time in the world. Decided to play bishop c4, but b6 was possible. Same idea, right? You cannot take here because I'll take on b8, then I can do b7 and rook a8 and win like that. But bishop c4 works, exchanging pieces, and here b6, same idea, b7, and here trade, and now very easy. The king can come all the way and support, and if the king here comes to the rescue, the rook here will go on a rampage and win the 3 pawns. There's nothing black can do. They played a few more moves, and now rook h7, and here rook take h5, and again if you're trying to go back, I go here, and now I can push the h-pawn, bring the king, and any pawn and games is winning for white. If you exchange, then you have a passer here. So in this position, Duda resigned, and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave becomes 2021 World Blitz Champion. A remarkable achievement, and I think it was all key to this key position here, where after the exchange, that bishop here was fully secured, and in a blitz game, he had a long-lasting advantage, and the result was never in doubt. So beautiful stuff, and a high-quality game in a 3 minutes plus 2 seconds fast time control. And once again, I show a picture of the players, and Maxime on the left is a deserved winner of the World Blitz Championship organized by FIDE in Poland. Thank you very much for watching.